will enter his I will enter his gate with thanksgiving in my heart. I will enter his courts with praise. I will say this today like the Lord has been. I will rejoice and be glad. He has made me glad, he has made me glad. I will rejoice, for he has made me glad.
So I wanted to talk to you today. So if you have your Bibles, I'm going to be starting with Philippians 4:12 through 13. I'll just give you a few moments to get that. And anytime I'm able to come here and visit, and of course, Pop, did you hear that? He's on my mind. Anytime Pastor Dave asked me to speak, you take this responsibility serious. It's not an opportunity for you to get up and just display your maybe talent or skills. It's really about what God wants to say to you today. And I know that, I've been thinking over the last several weeks of what do the people need? I said, God, what do they need? What do they need to hear that perhaps you can give me to say that might encourage them, lift them up, make their life better, and get you through the week to the next challenge of the week, because we're going to face them all the time. So today, let me start reading here from Philippians 4:12, 13. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to be have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or want. I can do all things through Him who strengthens me. Amen. We can do all things through Christ. Now, if I had to say today, and you can lift your hand if you like it to be our secret. Is anybody here going through a challenge in their life right now? It's all over. I mean, every one of them faces something. Many of us keep it secret, and some of us are more vocal. I tend to wear my feelings out of my sleeve. You can see if I'm, Donnie says I do this thing with my lip, and she says, you're doing that thing with your lip again, And she can tell if I'm wrong or if I'm right. And usually I'm right, so she doesn't see it a lot. So today I want to talk to you about overcoming adversity. And just to kind of relate to some of the things that you've been through. When I was 7 years old, my mother had a brain tumor. She was 26 years old, and it was as big as an orange. And they didn't think my mom was going to make it, and she had a seizure. And they had taken my mother to the hospital, and during that time, one of the family members called and said and told CPS, or Child Protective Services, that 5 children were in the house alone. And the weird thing about it, it's kind of a funny story. A few days earlier, my dad bought a new refrigerator. Well, I think it was Donna or Tammy. I have 3 sisters, 1 brother. And one of the girls, I think it was Donna, had made a fort out of the box from the refrigerator. So she had a pillow and blankets on there. And Tammy, being jealous of another sister, she took the closet underneath the stairs and she put some pillows and blankets in there. So she had a fort. And when Child Protective Service came in, they said we were sleeping in closets and in boxes. So I really wanted to put a pounding on my sisters for that. But we were all little, and I was 7, Donna was 8. We were we were just little guys. Linda, I think, was 1.5 years old. But during that time, they wanted to put us in foster homes. They wanted to split our family up. Thank God, my mom had 5 brothers, and each brother stepped up and said, we'll each take 1 child. And they were fighting over me, but finally... they weren't just the litter, right? So, but anyway, I was very fortunate to learn about Uncle Bob. He told me a lot about life, and of course, I lived with him for about a year, and then one by one, we began to come back. And I remember my first exposure to church ever was down here on 209th Street. It was a rainy day. It was pouring down raining, but during this time, my dad had gotten saved. And he gave his heart to the Lord and converted his friend to the pastor. So he had a key to the place, and it was pouring down rain, running down that basement, and running down the country church was probably maybe 2/3 the size of this one. And that's when I first saw a guitar. And I saw guitars lined up in front of that church, and I said, wow, what is that? So from that, I was inspired to start playing guitar when I was 7 years old. And of course, my dad would make me practice an hour every day, and I hated that. So that was my first adversity. I had to go in and practice an hour every day, and he would tune the 1 string in E, and he'd make me tune them all up and do wrong, and send me back in the bedroom. Back then, we didn't have tuners; we had pitch pipes. You had to hear it. Yep. And I actually developed a thing they call perfect pitch, and so there's a sound of E in my head, thanks to my dad making me do that constantly. There's only about 8% of the people on the planet that can do that. Now I'm getting a little older, I'm starting to use tuners, so I don't hear it like I used to. But anyway, so then I left home when I was 16 years old, and I remember, guess where I landed? I landed back at my Uncle Bob's house. And, but I couldn't read. I couldn't read rulers. Now I'm confident. I read rulers all the time. But if it wasn't for Bob to take that time and just teach me what an inch is, and one day I got it, I said, wow, an inch, that's a half an inch. What do you know? That's a quarter. My goodness, that's an inch, So I was blessed to have been, I went through because it was a real turbulent time with my father and me. And so when I left, it was not on good terms. And then, of course, I went through a lot of things during that time. I had to have back surgery when I was only 28 years old. Dr. Ben Carson did my first surgery, as a matter of fact. And I dealt with that situation. And then in 1992, most of you know, not all of you do, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis when I was 28. That was in 1998. Yes, no, I'm sorry. It was early, 88. So anyways, in 1992, I ended up having to have my entire colon taken out, and I've worn a bag on my side since then for 27 years. And but through that, I've had 2 back surgeries, 2 shoulder surgeries, I've had melanoma taken on my back, I've got diabetes, I got a bag on my side, I've had some other issues with prostate issues, and you know what? I'm in pretty good shape, my man. So I think I'm doing pretty good for this adversity, But I say all that to let you know that I can relate to your pain. This morning, Yvonne's going through a very challenging situation right now.
Yeah.
And we all know what's going on with you. And I'm sure that she is in a nervous place and in a place where she knows God can, but she needs help in lifting her faith.
Yes.
And we're here today, and before we end today, we're going to pray for her.
That's
and her
right.
needs.
Yes.
And but I wanted to tell you about, and I ended up writing a book called Tragedy's Gift. And it's in the process of being edited. Hopefully it'll be out on Amazon in a couple months, and we'll be able to do something with it. But really, when I began to think about it, I started thinking about that book because when I had the surgery and I had a bag on my side, I knew that there was a lot of people having a very difficult time dealing with it. They don't say anything to anybody. As you see, I get in front of people. I'm playing in a worship band. I live life. I have a business and contracting. I work with my tools at times. And so there really isn't anything that hasn't stopped me. So out of that, I found that I was encouraging a lot of people through that adversity. Using that situation, you can take your situation, and when you come through the other side, and you are victorious through adversity, you can use that to help other people, encourage them, and they can learn by your experience. I love the quote that says, "For every adversity comes with it the seed of a greater or equivalent benefit." If you learn by those experiences, you can help others by, hey, I've been through that, And, I have a friend of mine, she had breast cancer, and she is just, that's probably been 15 years ago. And she did a little CD to help other people, to encourage those people that are in that place right now. Because it's a very uncertain place, very scary place. And so I encourage you that those adversities that you're dealing with right now, take those lessons and find somebody to help them as a result of that. So, why do we go through these hard times? Why does God let bad things happen to good people? We go through times because it teaches us to trust God.
Yes, amen.
I know in the pit of despair, you tend to pray a little bit more. You tend to pray a little more serious, a little bit more fervent. You tend to be a little bit more needy, if you will. And but there's an old saying that says there are no non-believers in foxholes. Somebody's in a hole where they're getting shot at. You're praying to somebody. And I'm sure it's not somebody down there. So in times of need, we learn to believe. And again, no atheists in foxholes. I like the scripture, Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. God doesn't promise us an easy life. You see, He's given us free will. We're going to face challenges, but He's given us somebody that we can reach to in those hard times, in those difficult times. And then, I want to ask you this. When you are faced with adversity, do you get upset? Are you angry? Are you frustrated? Are you just at a point where you don't know what to do? And the reality is, or do you look to God and trust in God during that difficult time? We all go through that despair and anger situation, but the trick is to train ourselves in our minds that as soon as an adversity hits us, we should really focus on God for the solution. I did an interview on the radio last Monday, and they asked me a lot of these questions that I've come through, because it kind of solidified what I want to talk about today. I was talking about overcoming adversity and creating perseverance and power. I looking at it from a carnal perspective, as a business person and stuff. That's why they had me learn about the book and overcoming challenges. But the reality is that without God being the center, you're not going to do real well with these challenges. You've got to have God at the center. Amen. And one of the things is, I like what Psalms 34:19 says, "The righteous person may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers him from all." Like I was saying, He's not going to promise you an easy life. But I want you to just think about, when you think about those times, and you can relate right now, Yvonne, and I'm going through a situation too, we're going to pray earlier. I do have to have a prostate biopsy on Thursday, so pray that comes out fine. But when you have that situation, the natural carnal mind begins to think, do I have cancer? If I do, what am I going to do? Do I have enough life insurance? Will my family be taken care of? You're thinking about all those things in your mind, and you just have to say, devil, you're a liar. You know, get out of my mind. I don't even want to entertain those ideas. I want to put them in God's hands. And so when you do that, the best way to approach an adversity is to remember when you went through one and you came out on the other side victorious.
Amen.
Because that gives us strength, that gives us faith, and it makes us believe. And I've told you this little story before. I guess we've been living up on the farm for almost 6.5 years, and it's hard to believe it's going by that fast, isn't it?
Wow.
And one of the things is when I think we just had moved up there, I started having problems with the stoma that I have in my body when my intestines come down the outside of my body. And I started having problems with diagnosing with stoma hernias. And so they were going to do surgery. We were going to meet on Monday to talk about the surgery. But the doc said, let's get one more evaluation. So they did an MRI with contrast. And they came back and when we met with him, we went with him to schedule surgery. We didn't go to him to talk about anything else but getting the surgery and just kind of validate what he had already found out the first test. And we were sitting there and he had 2 computer monitors up and he had the original written test and he had the x-ray for the written test. And he's looking back and forth, very perplexed, and he said, you don't have any stoma hernias. This one here is, I don't understand. This one over here says you have it. It's in writing. And when I testified, I actually had the actual report from the doctor up here on this screen prior to you went digital. And so what I want to say about that is what an incredible miracle.
Amen.
You know, I was looking at, this surgery would have been very, very invasive because of all the scar tissue from the original surgery. There was a good chance we were going to have to do a reassignment put on the other side of me, or I could have died as a result of the surgery. You know, but the point is, be encouraged by those victories that you've received. How many here have had something miraculous happen to you? And you can look on the other side and say, you know what? God does heal. I know that He heals, and I can rely on that memory and that adversity, and I can come through victorious, and I can get healed from this. So, trusting God for the solution. Hebrews 4:16 also says, come boldly and confidently to the throne of grace and receive help in your time of need. Receive help in your time. You know, I watched my little granddaughter, Clara. She had these glasses. She's having some challenge with her eyes. And, you know, when you see a child that belongs to you, granddaughter or a national child in general, when you see that, you see them begin to cry and they hurt, you feel that pain for that child pity your being. You can hardly describe it unless you've been there. You would take a bullet, you would run in front of a train, you would do anything to protect that little baby. You wouldn't let anything happen. And like God, He said that God loved His own Son and He gave Him in for us. I mean, imagine giving your son up and letting him die, knowing the way he was going to be treated, spit on, beating, and the way he was tore up. And yet He still did it. He still did it. So you are one of His children, and He wants the best for you. He doesn't want bad things for you. And then just to kind of to help you misbelieve or kind of your challenges with unbelief, and it lets you start resting in God. In Luke, it said, or Mark 9:24, he said there was this man. He had a child. The child was mute and deaf and dumb, and the child was almost in convulsions. There was a large crowd around, and this man ran up to Jesus and he brings his child there, lays him down, and the kid started rolling all over the ground. And Jesus said, "How has it been like this?" You know, he was concerned. He was showing concern about it. And the next thing you know, he said, "According to your belief, I will heal it." And the man said, "I do believe, but help me with my unbelief." And that's a profound statement. I believe, but I have unbelief. Right now you're having some doubts, aren't you? You believe. You know God can heal. You know it can happen. But you still have some unbelief. So the thing is, how do we find belief? How do we do it? We just got to seek God to strengthen our unbelief and call for the support of the church. He said, gather the elders of the church together to support and pray for you. You know, there's another story that really fascinates me, and one that I talk about in the book. Years ago, I used to drive limousines. And I had an opportunity to pick this rock band up there called Def Leppard. Some of you know who they are, right? And so sitting next to me was a guy named Rick Allen. He was the drummer for the band. And so it was really kind of cool. I was in a 15-passenger cargo van, and I had a tuxedo on. And he said, "Hey, dude, can you like dress down, man? We don't want to draw attention to ourselves, because they were just wanting to go play soccer or do some fun things at the civic center. And I said, sure, no problem, man. So I had a pair of pants and a tank top and shorts underneath the seat, so I just jumped out of the van and pulled my pants off right in the street. And they just got a big kick out of it, so immediately I was like one of the gang. It was a lot of fun. So he really opened up to me, and I asked him, I said, how did you lose your arm? Yeah, the sleeve was all tucked up. And what had happened was, in England, where the man was from, he was traveling in his Z84 Corvette at a high rate of speed, lost control, and hit a wall, and ripped his arm literally off of his body. It went through the sunroof of the van. I mean, the Corvette. So he ends up in the hospital, and they sewed the arm back on, and 2 or 3 days later, I think it was gangrene had set in, and he was told that he was going to lose his arm. Now, how do you deal with an adversity of losing your arm when your identity is you're the drummer for this famous rock band? Drummers need 2 arms, right? I mean, how are they going to do that? So this is this really interesting lesson here, because it's like we within ourselves have the power too, because God gave us the free will. You know, like when you cut your hand, you don't sit and look at it and say, boy, I hope that heals. You know, God has already given us the gift of healing within us. He said, according to your belief. Why did he say that all the time? He said that because he knew that you believe. He said, you'll do even greater miracles than I will. You know, he wasn't kidding. I mean, we could do some really miraculous things. So Rick, what he did, they came and said, you got to take your arm off. Well, fortunately, his producer stayed with him. The band loved him and wanted to stay with him, and they supported him. And in his own spirit, he said, I still have the music inside of me. I still have the ability to play. I just have to figure out how I can replace this extremity. So he started working on a revised set of drums, where now the beats he would use with his left arm, he does it with his left foot. I don't know how he does it, but he brings the same great beats that he always brought back with 4 extremities. I mean, that's a pretty big miracle. And that adversity would have never been able to be achieved had he not thought he could. You know, so God has given you the ability within yourself to say, God, thank you for that gift. It's already been given. It's already been a miracle that he's given us. So we need to really begin to think within ourselves, how can we change some things to make our lives a little better when we deal with any adversity. And right now, I'm speaking a lot about physical adversity, but there's a lot of emotional adversities. There's financial adversities, things like that. The way I look at it, when the financial adversities get into your mind, it's like, you know what is the worst they can do? What's the worst can happen? You know, you end up with nothing, you start over. I mean, look at Colonel Sanders. He was 65 years old and lost it all because they built a bypass around his town where he had a really nice restaurant, and then nobody was stopping anymore. So everybody thought he was done. He went bankrupt, everything was over. But at 65 years old, he knew he had a great recipe for chicken. And he died a billionaire. He still died poor, though. he still died, right? But when he was living, he was doing okay. Okay? So, yeah, he was doing all right. So anyway, you know, and I want to share with you, you know, how do you drive through or push through some of those adversities? You know, there was another great story, and I love to tell stories because they really give a great example for how we too, as human beings, if somebody else can do it, we can do it. I read this book, it was called You Don't Have to Be Blind to See. And that title just caught me, and I read this thing probably 20 years ago. Well, Jim Stovall, when he was a little boy, he developed macular degeneration. And he was a baseball player, loved to play, he was a really great hitter, and he started missing the ball. He was like, what's going on? Why am I missing the ball? Kept swinging the ball, wouldn't hit it. So finally they diagnosed with macular degeneration, which is sort of like if you look at a computer screen, you got these little dot pitches, you know, little squares that make up a face or whatever. Well, one by one, these little pitches started going black. And eventually the whole entire screen was gone. And it was kind of funny because he said, you know, he loved to run. But then he still had a little bit of sight left. He was still able to go out and run. And that morning he got up and he was scared to death. He was totally blind. And he said he went out for a run. And he was running in the cars and stuff. He said, I got to figure out how to better do this. So he bought a treadmill. You know, he was running in the cars, you know, hurting himself. But you know, he was so despondent. So, I mean, I can't imagine what it must have been like. And he checked himself in a little room in his house, a 9x12 room, got a little recorder, a cassette player back then. He decided he was not going to go out anymore. He was going to be done with it. And then one day, something clicked. Sometimes you got to decide to decide. Decide to change whatever that adversity is. You're going to make a difference. You know what? I'm sick and tired of being here. I'm tired of being in this place. There's a switch going off. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to do something. And that's what he did. So one day he was watching or listening to a video when he loved gangster movies. He listened to James Cagney, and like, remember that You Dirty Rat? Remember that? Some of your old doesn't remember. And he thought to himself, I wonder what kind of suit does he have? Is it pinstripe? Is it blue? Does he have the famous wingtip shoe with the white socks? You know, and what kind of tie? And he started saying, does he have a Tommy gun? He got the idea that, wow, if I could just have somebody sit with me and narrate and tell me what this guy is seeing, I can really enjoy the show. Well, through trial and error, I mean, all the things that nobody said it would work, nobody said it would be done, all the video producers who just wanted to dub over top of existing videos, narrations and audio narrations over top of a blank sound, audio. And so he ended up developing the television the narrative television network. And now Jim travels all over the world, and he speaks, and he'll walk right up to the edge of the stage with his foot literally hanging over, because he'd go there ahead of time and he'd cast things off. But the point is, he's preparing himself for that adversity that's already happened. So he goes out and he does this. I just find that fascinating. Do you find that fascinating?
Yes.
It's funny to actually change their life. And most people, and this is no disrespect, he actually put in the book, most people are blind when you go to some place where we put pencil erasers on, and something that's safe and secure, and it's just amazing. I watched one the other day, a guy on a TV show, he was blind, and he developed the ability to do like what bats do. Sorry about that, Jess, I know you have a bat problem right now. And Jessie had a couple bats in her attic. She's driving the batty. But he actually learned how to use a sonar. But this little boy can ride a bike, and he doesn't, talking about overcoming adversity. That's really encouraging to me. So anyway, you want to also work on your spiritual fitness. When we think about spiritual fitness, we all live a life of challenges every day. We get up, we go to work. We deal with all the negativity at work. We deal with all the stuff that comes back. But we really have to, I encourage you, and I'm preaching to the choir. I have to be honest, I'm a very busy person. It's probably too busy at times. In the morning when I get up, we have a devotional from Billy Graham, and we probably read it maybe a couple times. We should do it every day. We need to get more in that habit. But it makes a difference. You lead with a different frame of mind when you start your day out on the right stuff. So the thing is, we all are going to get down. We're all going to have challenges. However, you must refuse to allow the temporary circumstances to dictate the long-term happiness in your life. Because everything is going to heal with time. Most time it goes away. It may not heal the way we want it to. I don't want to bag on my side, but hey, doctors were able to heal me through God's blessing of giving them the gift of discernment and study and knowing how to do it. And because of that, I have had 27 years more life than I would have had if those guys weren't available to do that. And it's been a wonderful life. I've had no problem at all. It's been a great life. So we need to know that when we get those situations, you get into your adversity. What's the first thing is you need to approach God about that adversity. You need to approach Him and begin to pray. This is 1 John 5:14. This is the confidence we have in approaching God, that if we ask anything according to His will, He hears us. Now remember that old song, I think it was, I forget the country singer, they're singing, "Sometimes I thank God for unanswered prayers." And sometimes, it's like when Donnie and I, we decided to go up to Freeman and to buy a farm. We prayed about that place, and we decided that we had a house we really wanted. It was 3.5 acres. It's a beautiful plantation-style home, big, giant, majestic oak trees. We really, really had our hearts set on the house. For nearly 11 months, we worked on getting the head report closed. They wanted $107,000 more than would actually praise for it, but they wanted to get the money out of it. So we prayed in that kitchen, said, God, and we got this from Harold Bowman. He said, I always pray that if it's not your will, then don't just shut the door, but slam the door shut. I want to hear it shut. I want to hear what it sounds like. I want to be sure to hear it. And so next thing I know, when they said he wanted $107,000 more than what was worth, I heard that it was slam the door, but you know what we do? We still go back because the lawyer told me, hey, there's going to be an auction. They're going to auction my house off. I should have said, no, the Lord slammed the door, I'm done. But I still let the human part of me go back. And I went to they literally had an auction. I didn't know they did it on the courthouse steps. So that was a neat experience anyway, so I'm glad it was. but the point was, they still wanted the money, everybody walked away from the house. But we ended up with the farm, and we went there, and we just felt it. I told Darlene, I said, we're going to buy this house, it's going to be our home. In 45 days, we're going to settle. I told her exactly what we were going to buy it for. 2 steps down, I literally said that step, 2 steps down the steps. My phone rang with my mortgage broker. He said, hey, I got you guys approved for this much. And it was exactly what I just told her. and we settled 45 days to the day. So what happened was we ended up in a place where I always like to say that it's like we owned the house, that property since the beginning of time. We just showed it to sign the papers and that. You know, so God blessed us because we had an unanswered prayer. So it wasn't really an adversity at all. So you have to recognize it's really an adversity. Start asking that question. How do you stay positive? That's a good one. How do you stay positive? They asked me already, how do you stay positive all the time? And I told them, I said, because I live in the mind gym. What do you mean by that? You see, your mind, your brain, the way you think is like a muscle. And the more you train it, the more you exercise. I've been reading books and listening to seminars or tapes and stuff about positive mental attitude, self-development. Since I was 19 years old, I've gotten involved in this book. But the best self-development book of all time is, you all know it, the Bible. Because most of these self-help books are really patterned off of what it says in the scriptures. They just put it in a different way, put it in their words so they can patent or copyright it and get a book out of it. But like Philippians 4:8, love this. He says, finally, brethren, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is of good repute, if there is any excellence and if there's any worthy of praise, dwell on these things. How do you stay positive? You dwell on the right things. You need to start your day out reading the Bible. Listen, one of the things, we had a family member who came up to the farm last week. She's going through a lot of problems, a lot of challenges. She's very unhappy with the job, and she's having some real difficulty right now. And she's having a lot of questions about her relationship with God. How do you love God if you haven't seen it? And she's asking these questions. And so one of the things I do is I love Dr. Miles, Dr. Byron Miles. She has the greatest ministry in the morning. Usually it's about 15, 20 minutes, and I'll listen to that, and it just charges. I'm in the gym, and I just turn it on, and I'm listening to it. And it might just be one little tiny nugget that changes your entire outlook for the day. I had a gentleman talk to me, and they said, man, what did you eat this morning? I was all pumped up, and I said, man, I'll just start my day out with the right stuff and great food. Man, I feel so much better now after talking to you. It was really good to hear that. But our family member, I started sending her. Every day I listen, I'd share it with her. And she shared with Darlene that this week was one of the best weeks that she's ever had in a long, long time. She had a different attitude about her job. In fact, she's actually thinking about staying there. They gave her extra work, and she basically said, thank you, instead of only me. So really, overcoming those adversities in your life, just immerse yourself into the mind gym. Begin to study yourself with God. And God desires for us to achieve greatness. And everything we do, He wants the best for us, just like we want the best for our children. It is with all of us to live our destiny. We are predestined by God. He said, you're even predestined even before the foundations of the world. I mean, He's already had it out for us. All of us have a purpose, a reason for being here. It's like, maybe you're a good singer. Maybe you want to be up here speaking, but you fear getting up in front of somebody and fearing. You've got to step out and realize that you can make that happen. But you know what's going to happen? You're going to have adversity. You're going to mess up. You're not going to sound as good as you thought you would. Your song's not going to go as well. But you know what? You keep on keeping on. You keep on pushing. You keep on going, So, and then of course you got to prepare yourself for greatness. And I love the story of David. You got to look for seeds and an opportunity in fertile ground. Think about David, for instance. When he was a little boy, he started using the slingshot. So I figured it out. I guarantee you the first couple rocks he threw, he wasn't hitting anything. But he got to get better and better. And then I'm sure it wasn't a lion or a bear when he first had to fight. It might have been a fox that came by and tried to get the chickens, something like that. And he was able to use that slingshot and start practicing and rehearsing and getting better and getting better and getting better. And just coming through every adversity. Missed that can this time, I'm going to throw it, I'm going to hit it again. And he started preparing himself for those great times. And eventually, he seized an opportunity. When he saw that this giant was making a light of the camp, and the lion was spewing all this venom, he had an opportunity to step within his faith that he knew that God would be there. And he said, I'll do it. And then when King Saul tried to put all the armor on, he was so small and such a little boy, he couldn't even lift the armor. He decided to trust in God. And sure enough, from seizing that opportunity, he was able to totally change his life and became king. As we know, one of the greatest kings in the Bible. And then, so you have to ask yourself, are you going through it or are you growing through it? And that's a big one. Are you going through it or are you growing through it? If you have these adversities and you grow as a result, as I was mentioning earlier, you grow as a result, you're going to be stronger, your faith is going to be stronger, and when the next adversity comes up, the experience of dealing with that last one is going to give you more ammunition to go ahead and push through that other one. You know what I'm saying? So, let me just tell you about another guy, Hezekiah. Somebody say, well, he'd be one of the greatest kings ever. Hezekiah was a man after God's own heart, much like David. Everything he did, it was in God's favor. He was 25 years old when he took the kingdom. Now, I got to be honest with you, when I was 25 years old, I was a pretty smart guy. I don't look like I run a kingdom. But what happened was, he was always sickly. You don't know what the sickness was. But at some point, God came to him and said, Hezekiah, you are going to die. There is no, pass go, collect $200, you are going to die. Well, he became vexed in his spirit. He wanted to live. He wanted to be around a long time. At 25 years old, he said, God, just please don't take me out yet. There's got to be a reason to keep me here. You look at all the things I've done. I've done everything you told me to do. I've given myself to you. Again, why would God allow that man to die at 25 when he did all the things that were in favor of God? And so God said to him, I'm going to give you 15 more years. Now, to some of us who are 59, 15 more years is pretty good. 25, man. 15, that's not a lot of years. But he appreciated what he got, and he decided that, that was fine. But the question is, if you think about it, why did God give him those extra 15 years? You know why? Because the 15 years prior, look at all the things he had done to obey the will of God. And then we have to ask ourselves a question. If we were going to die today and God said, I'm going to give you 15 years, would he say that to us based on our past life for the last 15 years? What do we have when we look at our past? So the question is, I don't know if he'd give me those. He said, you know what, Don, you're a real mess up, so I don't know if I want to give you anything. But the point is, if we look at our next future, ask yourself, in 15 years from now, can I change my life to a point, can I deal with the adversities in my life? Can I come through the challenges? Can I have faith in God no matter what? Can I stand for him in faith for him? And in 15 years, if I was asked that question, I could resoundingly say, absolutely. Absolutely. My life has been one that's been great for God. You think about that. And then you just really have to be worthy. And you basically just do as I've been talking about. Just pray, seek the Lord. And then I'd like to share with you one more thought. And then that is, excuse me if I get my notes going on here. It was funny this morning, I thought I had another hour, and Dawn said, we got to leave. I'm like, I'm not done. But worthy of the help. But anyway, so till we all come to unity of faith and of knowledge of the Son of God, to a perfect man, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ, that we should no longer be children tossed to and fro, carried about every way, every wind of doctrine by trickery of men, in the cunning craftiness or deceitful plotting. But speak into the truth of love, may grow up in all things into him, who is in Christ, the head Christ, from whom the whole body, joined and knit together by whatever joint supplies. According to the effective working by which every part does, it shares causes growth of the body of the edifying of Christ. This I say, therefore, testifying in the Lord, that you should no longer walk at the rest of the Gentiles, but walk in the fruity of their minds. So you change your mind, you're going to commit yourself to Christ. Sorry, let's go back up here. At some point, you know that you can overcome anything. Again, I can overcome anything through Christ who strengthens me. And now, like we started out today, many of you are dealing with challenges. We don't know whether financial, whether family challenges, kid challenges. Jesse's dealing with a 2.5-year-old challenge, the dominator we call it. But we all are facing something. And today, I'd like to, we're going to come up and just pray for Yvonne. If anybody else would like prayer, we'll certainly do that. And I certainly would like to pray myself for this biopsy I'll have done this week too. And I think your Thursday, your procedures as well? The 9th, I'm sorry, I keep thinking the 9th. And my grandson's having some challenges right now. He's got a procedure he'll be going through on Tuesday. So we're all facing that. And the message today is to lean into God with these adversities. But also, lean into yourself to know that God has given you the ability to think your way through challenges. To think your way through doing it. Because he said, you have that. He's giving you the tools. He's giving you the ability. He's giving you the word. And just begin to, I encourage you to start the day, every day, with the right thing in your mind. One of the exercises I heard was kind of neat. It said, the lies we tell ourselves. We tell ourselves so many lies. I can't lose weight because I've tried everything. I can't do it, I'm not strong enough. I can't run that fast because I don't have the need. We tell ourselves things, and some of these things are true. you should just take a moment and write down all the things that you would like to accomplish, the lies that you tell yourself. Okay? Like one thing was, I can't lose weight, I've tried everything. But if you really look at it, have you really tried everything? So that's the truth. You know? So what you do, you take it in pencil, write everything that you can think about that you want to be accomplished, and write that in pencil. And then skip about 4 lines, and then write another one. And then come back and look at these lies you tell yourself, and then write it in red pen. And then in another couple of days, review the lies you tell yourself, and every time look at the truth. You'll say, this is the truth about that thought. And you do that red pen. And eventually what's going to happen is you look at it 4 or 5 times a day, like doing it, and then eventually you're going to stop looking at the line, you can see the truth in red, and you can erase that pencil out of it. And I guarantee you it'll change your life. These are just simple exercises to make our lives better. Because you know, the Bible says that we are to occupy till I come. We all want to go to heaven, you know, but we've got to enjoy time down here as well. Serve God, but we also have a life to live. You know, we want to be able to experience a great life. So let's come on up. We're going to lay hands on Yvonne and anyone else would like to have prayer. We're going to go ahead and do that. And anyway, worship people, we're going to sing. All right. We already have the harmony here. Oh, okay. I don't know the chords. I don't know, right? All right. Everybody gets up here. Nothing more than